I guess I ask you one more time. You think the black people being the chosen people, or black people the Hebrews?
Yes.
Or you want to deal with the history of the Semitic race? And it's like flipping a coin.
History of the let me history of the Semitic race or black people. I don't know. What do you feel, man? Either that's a toss up to me. I'm 50-50 on it
I
because
think
they're both relevant.
I think we can come with the spearhead at the beginning because it's the big question, and that's
Mhm.
what's relevant to black people
Black people.
when
Yeah.
it comes to other races, like how other races view us.
Mhm.
If we're the chosen, or is it these European Jews?
Yeah.
That's big, you know what I'm saying? But the history will be able to kind of like give us validation and verify what we're saying today. If I come
Okay.
back and deal with history
Yeah.
and really show the background of the Semites, and I'm telling you, we can travel
Mhm.
all throughout their history to get a clear view. But I feel like kind of making addressing it toward that specific group, black people, that'll probably put us at a
Mhm.
good, at least a good introduction.
Okay.
But it's up to you. I mean, you've been pondering on it for a minute.
No, I think that's good, man.
What you think is
I think the black people one is good.
okay? Well, I'll go ahead and I said you said you want to do an introduction, or you think I should just
No,
open up?
yeah, just open up. Just let's start cooking, and
Okay.
I can bust off with a question if you want to, if that's the way you want to start off.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, you can interject questions, and I kind of be able to guide the ship. And trust me, we're gonna get to the destination. There's gonna be a lot of knowledge that we're gonna unpack. So, but yeah, peace. I don't know if I'm clear on both cameras, but this is Brother Hígh John. Today we're gonna be addressing our black people, the chosen people, or our black people, the Hebrews, the biblical Hebrews. And the reason why we addressing this topic is for the sake of the bigger world perspective on Jewish history or Hebrew history and how it's relevant to black people, and whether or not black people have been tricked, deceived, lied to about the history, and who are these people in the biblical text that are called the children of Israel, the Hebrews, the Israelites. Later on, they get called the Jews or Judeans. And so I'm going to give probably some information and knowledge that most of you probably not been exposed to or familiar with. Even you of those who are Hebrews or come from the Hebrew background who already have this knowledge. This might be something alternative. You may have never heard this before, but we're going to unpack it. I'm going to make sure I give my references. I'm going to give documentation. So this is not about an opinion or a social rhetoric to sway your attitude or sway your learning. This is about you going home and doing your homework and doing research in your life and reaching the clarity about your own identity, your own true identity. Because right now in our community, we're dealing with an identity crisis. And the origin of this problem, this identity crisis, is steeped like in deep mystery of whether or not we are the Egyptians. Let me put that on this chart. Whether we Egyptians, whether we are Israelites. The mystery of who we are, of our identity, is steeped in, are we the cursed Canaanites? You hear this in the Bible about the Hamites or the Canaanites and so on. Or are we the Egyptians? You have a lot of us in our community, the Kemetic communities, that would say West Africans, and us here in America, we derive from maybe Egyptians. You have the Israelite background, and you also have the Moors, which is very popular. And the last group is pretty much the Aboriginals, the Native American. They say that we have roots here through different Native American or Aboriginal tribes. So what I'm going to deal with today, though, is pretty much going to be based on the Bible and the Israelite narrative and who they were and how that's relevant to us. Or is that pretty much, are we the Israelites is the question. Are we black people in America this lost tribe, these lost 12 tribes of the children of Israel? And I think that's what you were getting earlier about the lost tribes. So pretty much everything that I would dive into from history or spirituality, everything that was most significant to the ancient world and where black people have been covered in a veil of ignorance, it's because of our lack of knowledge of self. And there's seven levels to knowledge or awareness of yourself. And I gotta preface this because what we're dealing with at the level of knowledge that we have of awareness of our identity or ourself, dealing with the Israelites or us being the Hebrews, and all of these other different backgrounds, these different races, is basically dealing with nationalism. Nationalism, basically trying to understand your race or your national origins, or what nation you are, so you can be able to move politically in the world. What I have to reveal, though, after you go through these different levels of knowledge, remember, getting awareness of yourself, you're going to have to reach a level of getting awareness of your soul. And the Jews, those who were under the Jewish mystic traditions, like the Kabbalah or the Halkalah or the Merkaba tradition, they moved past the level of being trapped under the bondage of who they were ethnically or who they were as a race, and they got to the deeper levels of who they were spiritually and what they were as a soul. So black people, because of us and what we've been through slavery, through oppression, we've been trapped here at a certain level of spirituality, a certain level of knowledge of self. So we have to go through these stages of development to get these unravelings of what our point of being alive is, or who we are as a people. The soul is a certain level of knowledge, but then there's also you having knowledge of your ancestors, so that would be like your household deities. That could be your grandparents and your, and so on. And this would be pretty much having knowledge of your body, your physical body, your anatomy, your physiology, etc. So what I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna be kind of guided with the brother Nav here, brother Fleek with me, is pretty much navigate you to the question of removing the ignorance of our knowledge of self when it comes to our race.
Question. So, as you're going along here, do you want me to wait for questions, or do you want?
No, you can interject.
I can interject with questions.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because when you interject, it'll be the spark to let me know that it's some darkness I'm not covering, or maybe I should, try to give more clarity and be more, transparent.
Okay.
But if I go on, then I might miss some things that's relevant, and I'll just be documenting what is significant to me personally. Mm-hmm. But yeah, interjections is perfect,
Okay.
Usually though, any other time I could just document, but your questions is gonna be what I'm here for. You see, basically to get to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Because what I want to share may not be what it's gonna be most helpful.
Okay.
So dealing with these Hebrews or these Israelites, I'm going to make a statement, and it might not be that popular, may not be that well known, but I'm going to say it ahead of time. 10 years from now, people are going to come back and watch this tape and say, oh man, their brother was like 10 years ahead of his time. It took us an abundance of research to finally reach this reality. Mm-hmm. But the confusion that is happening on whether or not we're the Hebrews, these ancient Israelites or these Hebrews are the chosen people or not, the confusion is coming from the fact that, yes, ironically, we are these Hebrews or these Israelites, these chosen people. Now in the Bible, they call them the chosen people of God. They call them the people of the book. And we're speaking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his 12 sons, and all of the people that, in the biblical narrative in Genesis, produced this nation called Judah and Israel. These two nations, Judah and Israel. And what I'm getting at is the mystery and the profoundness of these people being scattered and enslaved through prophecies, scattered and enslaved, and put through a certain level of ignorance through curses that the knowledge of their ancestry, the knowledge of their history will be removed from them, and they will be a people that had no knowledge of their nation or their race.
Question.
Check.
So you said there in the Bible there were two. Did you say kingdoms or two?
Two kingdoms, yes.
Two kingdoms, and are these two Jewish kingdoms or?
No, that's a good question. We can do that right quick. And
okay.
This will be the side pieces of the meal. Mm-hmm. The meat will be answering, are we the actual Israelites ourselves? Okay. But yeah, we had to have these side dishes to have the whole meal.
Yeah.
Okay, the word Jew comes from the word Yahudit or Judah. See it? Judah?
Oh, okay.
Jew comes from Judah. Mm-hmm. Judah will be the three tribes to the south called the Southern Kingdom. You can read this in the book of Numbers, Chronicles, Kings, Second Kings, and it will lay out for you, like King Solomon and King David. They were kings of the south. They were kings of Judah. That's their own kingdom.
Is that like a bloodline or a lineage?
Bloodline.
It's a bloodline. Okay.
But you have to understand that I made the first statement that yes, I will yield and say we are descendants of the chosen people of the biblical narrative, or we are these Israelites. We're descendants of the Israelites. But this is very important. I say this because this took me about a good 5 years of in-depth study. Is that the reality, the conundrum, the problem comes in, the conflict comes in, is because these Jews or Israelites, they're one and the same as the Canaanites. These people, these two ethnic groups are one and the same people. Now that's where you get these words Semitic or Hamitic, and you have also Yephetic. That's where the confoundment or the confusion comes from. So what I'm gonna do my best today is to show that the Israelites derive, and this is the modern day scholastic research, this is conclusion, they call it the scholastic conclusion, is that the Israelites were not from the northeast or from the east. They were natives right there from Canaan. Okay. So from the biblical narrative, like,
is that a region? Sorry. Is Canaan a region?
No, it's not. It's actually Palestine or the land of Canaan, but it's called the Levant or the Middle East. The Levant, that's the region. Okay. The Middle East, it's north of Egypt, that whole region. So the land of Canaan reaches as far as Phoenicia toward Turkey, or it's called Tyre, and all the way as far as south as the Dead Sea toward Egypt. Okay. So we put a map up, basically get a get good view of the area. But basically, if you go back into history, and I want people to go research this, they did archaeology in Israel, and this is very important. I say this because this is going to get into are we the Israelites, or are the Israelites black people is more important. Were they Africanoid, or were they melanated people? Well, there's a group that archaeologists discovered their bones. They through archaeology and anthropology, they discovered bones in the Middle East, in the land of Canaan, dating back to about 10,000 BCE. So that's important because 10,000 BCE is way before Abraham or Isaac or Jacob. Yeah. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, fairly we can go to about 1700 or to 1200 BCE. So I'm saying almost 8,000 to 9,000 years before they even were born or existed, there were people in that land, and they were civilized, high classical people, meaning they had writing, they had deities, they had culture, and they were called, today the archaeologists, they call them the Natufian people. The Natufian. And this Natufian culture, see, this research is what will give you the holes, or give you the background of why we're so confounded on who we are when it comes to the biblical text. Because the reality is, yes, we are the Israelites, or you can make that claim, but what's more profound is, are the Israelites what they claim to be? They actually derive from Africans. Okay, they derive from children of Ham called Canaanites. So what I have to do is I have to go through the biblical text, through Genesis, to show where the confusion began.
So yeah, you felt that question coming on. So it's like deciphering the biblical text and the historical text.
It's two different narratives.
And figuring out the narrative of both of those things.
And that's what gets complex, is understanding the real on the ground history through archaeology, and versus what the Israelites wrote in their sacred text. Yeah. And so that's what my job is to slowly unpack for people in layers the truth, because our goal, when I'm done, should be that we as black people should be able to be custodians of the Bible. That is our text. But we have to pay attention and not ignore the Egyptian culture, the Ethiopians, the Phoenicians and Canaanites. Is everything okay?
Oh yeah, everything's still good. This one right here got overheated.
Okay, check.
It's okay. We're still live here.
Oh yeah, you got them all. Okay. So the Natufians, they found skulls and skeletons that are Negroid or African. Okay? And they gave the markers of what genetic ancestry these people come from, and they marked them with haplogroup E. So let me know if any of this is reaching, far reaching beyond what you may be exposed to. But,
so the genetic marker is just something that is the DNA that gives a person their negroid features or melanin. Is that
facts? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the genetic map is pretty much what it's called. It's a map of the migration of humanity or humans.
Mm-hmm.
A being the original or most archaic and ancient humans.
Okay.
They are called the Khoisan-San, and they live pretty much in Botswana or in South Africa, towards South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That's haplogroup A. Then you have haplogroup B, C, D, that's moving further up the Nile. Mm-hmm. When you get to E, that's the very top of the Nile. Mm-hmm. Now, this Natufian culture, Natufian people, then you find their skulls having the blood or the ancestry of haplogroup E. This is very important. It literally is just discovered in 2016. They found these bones. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna get references because I gotta do this for the tape. Let me know if I'm on point, if you're able to follow everything. But I gotta get the references as well, because that's what is gonna be able to help people that are learning be able to take from this. Okay, this is the Bible Unearthed by Israel Finkelstein. And pretty much he documents just what I said. Thoroughly in his text, he shows that the Israelites derived from different Canaanite tribal people. Mm-hmm. So if I go into the history of how the Israelites came about, how they codified this whole 12 tribes, this whole concept, and remember your name is Reuben, that's ironic. But these 12 tribes were actually Phoenician or Canaanite, high classical Canaanites, Phoenician deities. Mm-hmm. So how do we know that the Israelites derived from Phoenicians? And that's what I have to put emphasis on. People have to do research on that and be able to comprehend where I'm going. But how we know is because the Hebrew language, I don't know if you're familiar with the Hebrew language.
No.
The Hebrew language, this is going to be key. So I can show a graph. I'll show a graph of the Hebrew language, but it derives from what's called Proto-Canaanite or Phoenician language. Okay. So that when we say we're speaking Hebrew, or that's the Lashon Kodosh, meaning the holy tongue, like the holy language, mm-hmm. That holy language of the Hebrews, the Israelites, is actually Phoenician. So we have the language. What about their names and their deities? Mm-hmm. Their deities, the primary deities of the Israelites or the Hebrews, and it's a text called the Baal cycle. I'll show a picture of it on my phone. The Baal cycle is El being the all-father, the chief deity of the pantheon of the Hebrews. El, Baal, Yam, Mot, Asherah, Atharat or Astarte or Ishtar, all of those, the female and male deities that are in the Hebrew Bible.
Aren't those from Indian?
Whoa, we're gonna get into that, y'all.
Yeah. I'm like listening to the names, what's that on?
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, okay, I'll put that on I gotta put that here too. Yeah, I gotta put that. Yeah, because I put Hindu because Indian can get confused.
Yeah, that can get confused.
We're here in America, so.
Yeah.
But Hindu, when I say Hindu, I mean East Indians or mm-hmm. Southeast Asian people. Mm-hmm. So the irony is, the Israelites, you can say, I have all the references, I have all of the books here, mm-hmm. that the Israelites were considered by Tacitus to be a group, that's a historian, a Roman historian, by Tacitus to be descended from the Egyptians. Okay. This is a historian.
So when Egyptians encountered them, they said that you are from.
No, it was a Roman European.
When the Europeans encountered them.
They encountered these Jews or these Israelites, mm-hmm. and he said these are people of Egyptian stock. Mm-hmm. These are Egyptians.
And this is what 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. That's a good date. Yeah. So this is a little bit after the time of, they say, the Christ of the New Testament. Mm-hmm. Jesus or Yeshua, Yehoshua, whatever.
Around that period.
About a good, give it 50, 60 years, give or take. So Tacitus all of the references that I'm going to give, we're going to be able to put it on the screen, and all of our books is going to pretty much be what we stand on.
Okay.
These books are key because this is what black people are unexposed to. This is the annals to help us understand the history of these Israelite people, which is our history. But once you understand the history of the Israelite people, you'll understand that they are the Egyptians. They're considered to be Canaanites. I'm going to show you that reference. They were considered to be Canaanites. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to deal with the Ethiopians. We'll deal with the Canaanite because that is who their actual link is. Because Ethiopian means all of the different dark melanated people of Northeast Africa. So the Egyptians can be considered Ethiopian. The Nubians, you heard of the Nubians, the Cushites, the Eritreans, all of these people can be considered Ethiopians. We were one of those group of people considered Ethiopians to the Greeks and Romans. Okay. So we get confused with names, not modern day Ethiopia, that's different Ethiopians. Talking about ancient Ethiopians.
Okay.
So
hold on 1 second. You keep cooking. Let me just close the door to the room. I don't think it's gonna pick up that sound in the background, but
yeah, okay. We're trying to express to you before we got into it earlier that this is going to be stuff that's never been documented. At least
it's going to be a little bit controversial for a lot of people, but it's okay.
Well, our goal is to remove, because what's going to happen when
opinion.
It's going to remove opinions.
Yeah.
And conflict and division, because what's going to happen is people are going to identify as being Israelites. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly appropriate because, like I said, that's a part of our legacy. But then they begin to be antagonistic or they become hateful against all of the other ethnic groups. And when we are the same people. It's all one and the same. So, Dr. Dana Reynolds, she basically breaks down that the Israelites and the Canaanites, who we call the Arabians, called the Ishmaelites, the Israelites, the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, and the Egyptians were all one and the same people. Called the Afro-Semitic groups of people. So if you go into it's called the documentary hypothesis. Let me write that down. The documentary hypothesis let me see. The documentary hypothesis is basically where they discovered that there's 4 different versions of what we call the Pentateuch or the Old Testament. You've heard of that word, right? The Pentateuch?
I have not. What's that?
Oh, that's the first 5 books in the Old Testament. The Pentateuch. Okay. It means the compilation of 72. Because it was 72 elders of Jews who put that text together.
Oh, okay.
And they basically subscribe it at the name, or the Septuagint. The Septuagint. So the Tanakh or the Pentateuch that we have comes from 4 different versions. The J, the E, the P, and the D. This is very important. When you go and you research this online, you can go right on Google, go get an encyclopedia. Around it's about 2012, 2011 is when they discovered certain texts, certain biblical scrolls, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, that forced them to say there's 4 different versions of this Old Testament. So what that means is we have 4 different narratives of what the Israelites believed is their identity.
Oh, wow.
Some Israelites believed that they were Canaanites. They had no problem with that. Some Israelites believed that they came from Syria. That they were Syrian. Okay, that they came from Syria. Or they came from the north. When you say that the Hebrews, their names sound like there might be some Hindu influence there, it's because out of all of the Israelite people, which was a pretty vast group of people that were in the land of Canaan, the Syrian aspect of them, which is Semitic, that is Asian, that Semitic aspect is where Abraham derived from. So the best way to help you understand this is Abraham had an Egyptian wife, you see,
Mm-hmm.
All of the Israelite tribes, if you go into the Old Testament, you read the book of Numbers or you read the book of Chronicles, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Naphtali, Asher, Gad, all these different tribes, with the exception of Levi,
Mm-hmm.
all of them had Canaanite wives. This is documented in the Bible.
They were so the 12. Those are the 12 tribes, right?
Yes, you can add. You got to add Benjamin
Mm-hmm.
and his son. His brother Benjamin and Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
because I got to add those two because Benjamin and Joseph. Benjamin had Canaanite wives as well, but Joseph had an Egyptian wife.
Mm.
So all of these women, ironically, of these 12 tribes of these Israelites, all of these women end up being from these different groups.
Wow. Okay, that's making a little bit of sense. There's how it's spread out.
So when you hear the news, you hear the unveiling that these Israelites were black people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because without a doubt, whether they're from Syria or not,
Mm-hmm.
Abraham's children intermingle abundantly, I'm telling you, very overwhelmingly, with Canaanite, Ethiopian. Moses had what? An Ethiopian wife.
Mm-hmm.
Solomon, Queen of Sheba, an
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopian wife.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, the 12 tribes, Moses, Abraham, all of your key patriarchal figures of the Bible, that particular text, all had African wives.
Wow.
Hamitic wives.
Mm-hmm.
Not Semitic wives. So, and let me know how.
No, you're good.
Okay, all of them.
So wait. You just blew my mind. We gotta we gotta run that back real quick.
Yeah.
So, in the 12 tribes, they took different wives, or they had different wives of different regions, different from Canaanites, Phoenicians, Ethiopians.
Hamitic,
yeah,
African,
yeah,
black,
right, and essentially because they're their own different, what do you want to call kingdom? Those started a kingdom under the when he went and got an Egyptian wife, that was a new kingdom created with that.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, that would be. It's called the kingdom of Samaria.
Samaria, yeah.
And that's the northern kingdom of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
They're half Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
They can never remove that from their blood.
Yeah.
So what matters is the documented hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Yahweh's text. That's the text where the priests were under Yahweh. They venerated Yahweh. They no other deities. We hate all of the other gods. Just Yahweh. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And they blotted out all the other gods out of their books. And it's important that we take note of that because there's a Hamitic goddess, a Hamitic great mother by the name of Atharat or Asherah that they blotted out of the text.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Yahweh's version of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Then we have the Elohists. The Elohists is
so they were polytheistic until
yeah. Well, they were what's called heno. Have you heard of this before? Henotheistic.
Henotheistic. Okay.
Henotheistic means you have a supreme deity. Okay, hold on. Yeah, now we cook it. Yeah. We have the 72 sons of El. Okay, and these 72 sons of El, if you read in the book of Genesis, it's probably about chapter 15, like chapter 13, 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
These 72 sons of El, they incarnate, they literally embody. This is when we get into spirituality. Now, I told you there's different levels of knowledge of self.
Mm-hmm.
These 72 sons of El incarnate as 72 different nations on the planet. 72 different races or nations. So, what I'm saying is, with the JEPD, the document hypothesis, you have the Yahwehs, which is, they made Yahweh the only deity, the supreme deity, and all other forms of deities in the pantheon were subordinate. And so I have my text. I want to make sure I get my references. But this will be the Elohist. The Elohist is where they have the pantheon of all the Elohim, of plural gods. That was a henotheistic text. The P represents the priestly text. Priestly. Okay. The D represents the Deuteronomic text. And that's where you get the concept of Deuteronomy from. Mm-hmm. The Deuteronomic version. Mm-hmm. So,
quick question. Elohim. What I hear that a lot. What does that mean? Okay. Is that just like another? I don't want to say. What does it mean?
Well, okay, we can do that quick. Yeah, Elohim basically is the plural Phoenician, not Hebrew. See, they like to say, oh, it's the Hebrew language. Like I said, the Hebrews got their language from the Phoenicians. They got that concept of the gods, the Elohim, from the Phoenicians. Because you have to understand, have you heard of ancient Sumer?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so there's two major origins for these Hebrew people. If they identified with coming from Sumer more than they do from Africa or from Canaanites, they would have called their deities the Anunnaki.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But they called their
connected
deities.
A couple dots there for me.
Yeah, they would have called their deities the Anunnaki.
Yeah,
which are Sumerian deities.
Sumerian, yep. Okay.
And that will be Anu, his wife Asherah, Enki, Enlil,
Lil.
Marduk, Nebo. These are all Sumerian deities.
Yep.
And that's important because they did influence Hebrew culture. But what I'm trying to express to you is the Israelites, not Hebrews, you got to make a distinction. Because Semitic and Hebrew is different than what I'm saying that the Israelites or Judeans are.
Got you.
It's basically one is mixed and blended, and like let's say miscegenated, meaning they're like black people in America. We're half European. A lot of us are half European or part European or part Native American. Same thing happens to the Israelites. So if I asked you, are the Dominicans and the Cubans and the Puerto Ricans, are those our people? Right?
Yeah.
But can I claim to be a Puerto Rican or a Dominican?
Ooh.
If I'm not from the island?
No.
So what I'm saying is, the Israelites are us.
Yeah.
They're Canaanites. They were African people. They were black people. But what I'm saying is, can we all if I actually am a Canaanite or if I actually am a Phoenician, can I claim that narrative that's in the Old Testament of them being blessed by that particular deity, Yahweh?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that would be for my brothers, the Cubans. And the people we call them Puerto Ricans or Cubans, what makes them not us, they are us because they're African. But what makes them not us is that they're Taino. They're Arawak. They're Carib. These are Native American tribes. Black Native American tribes, yeah. Because there were melanated tribes here outside of the Mongoloid, Tonto Indians of North America. Right. There were dark brown-skinned natives in this continent we call America. And the Puerto Ricans are a perfect example of that. But also the Trinidadians and the Brazilians, the Colombians, and so on. So what I'm saying is, I can identify with the African side of my Puerto Rican brothers. In that sense, we're the same. But I can't identify as Taino.
Right.
They're Taino. So the Israelites, that's us. That's our people. But we can't identify with the Syrian or the Semitic or the Asian aspect of them. And so, because Abraham, it says that he came from Ur of the Chaldees. Are you follow? I don't know if I'm...
From the Chaldees?
Ur of the Chaldeans. Ur of the Chaldees.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that.
Okay, that would be in Genesis, about chapter 10.
Okay. Abraham, you said Earl?
U-R.
U-R.
Basically, he came from...
Chaldees. Now, is that a location or is that people? Yeah,
Ur is a city and Chaldeans is his people, is Abraham's people. Okay. And they were a group. His father's name is Terah. Terah's father's name is Nahar, and Nahar's father's name is Haran. You take all of those names back, it'll take you to somebody called Eber. And this is in the Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10. Eber is where you get the word Hebrew from.
Hebrew is from the word Eber?
That's right. Eber. And it means to cross over because they crossed over the Euphrates River. It's a particular river in what we call Iraq today. And when they crossed the river, they had to dissociate themselves from their people that they derived from. They were on the other side of the river. And they then, because his people were named Peleg or Faxad, and that'll take you all the way back to, they claim, Shem, or, and I have to say this for the tape, for those who are critical. Remember, we got to do our research. The issue with the Ham, Shem, and Japhet narrative, because remember we talk about anti-Semitism, but what I want to claim against the Jews and for most of the world, or even if people want to say that the Canaanites were cursed, is anti-Hamitism. That's key. We have to coin that phrase because that has a negative association on African people against the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the West Africans, the people of the Congo, the people of South Africa, is anti-Hamitism. So sure, we can identify with the Hebrews or the Israelites, because I've been showing through DNA, through wherever we want to go, any angle you want to take. Yes, the Israelites were black and they were a part of our lineage. It can be proven and documented without a doubt.
Question: Ham, is he one of the tribe, or who's Ham?
Okay. You have Noah. Okay.
Was his son? He was the son of Noah.
That's right. Noah.
Okay, I remember now. And are Ham melanated people?
That's a fact. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what has happened is that you have three sons, and Japhet is identified with the people in Europe, the most pale, being in the furthest part of the earth, furthest part of the planet, away from the equator. Now Shem is the middle region, the Middle East, pretty much, and as far as East Asia, really, you can go as far out as East Asia. Now Ham, his portion of his territory is from right there, Canaan. Really, you gotta understand that the Africans, we were as far as Southern Europe. We were as far as Southern Europe. We had people called the Etruscans. I don't know if you heard of the Etruscans.
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to tell you this tape. We're gonna be documenting some stuff. Yeah. But the Etruscans and the Phoenicians are very much Africans that lived in what we today call Europe. Europe, the name Europe comes from a goddess, African goddess. She's an African goddess by the name of Europa.
All right. Okay.
So that's a Phoenician goddess named Europa. All of the Greek mythology and all of the Greek language, the Greek culture, comes from the Phoenicians. You see, so that's why it's so important that I share what I'm sharing today, is because we as black people, we can understand our greatness by accepting the Hebrew narrative as ours. Yes, that text, the Old Testament and the New Testament, etc., those are our books. We wrote them. But you have to explore, where did they come from actually? Well, we showed that they come from the Syrians, but I don't know if I have the time. You think I should thresh out the Hindu and Syrian side? And
yeah, because I actually wrote it down as far as like
you think
the Asian community, where they fit in with this.
It's a lot that I'm missing because I'm trying to rush. But everything that we're showing, though, is stuff that is...
I got plenty of time, so...
Okay.
You take your time. I also have a question about like the Phoenicians.
Let's deal with them.
The Phoenicians, is that a group of people in Africa?
Okay, originally, man, this is a good question. Originally, they come from a people called the Puntites. Now, everybody that's watching, please go research the people of Punt. Now, the Egyptians considered the people of Punt to be called Tai-Neter. Tai-Neter means the land of the gods. The Egyptian word
Neter
or Neteru means gods or gods. Our ancestors come from the crooks of the Nile that's south of the Egyptians, but to the east of the Cushites, the Nubians or Ethiopians. Today they're called Eritrean people. And northern Somalian, and northern Ethiopian people. That's where we derive from. So if you're talking about an Israelite or an Egyptian or a Phoenician or a Canaanite, where do all of these people come from? They come from the eastern part of the Nile called Punt. The real origin of the Egyptian ethnic group called the Timerians. But see, the Bible calls them, in the J version and a few of these other, the priestly, they call them Misraim.
Is that where like the historical Garden of Eden is?
No.
Okay.
Beautiful though. Okay, so if we got a map, we'll show maps.
Yeah, we'll have to pull up on a map
of Punt, but the Garden of Eden will be the Congo. Remember, I showed you the haplogroups. Haplogroup A is very important what we're sharing, brother. Haplogroup A is Adam. So, okay, let's ask a question, everybody, based on mythology and understanding cosmology. Was there really a talking serpent in the book of Genesis? It's time to address these questions. So that's going to be me going into metaphysics, and I got to go into the Kabbalah and go into the Hebrew mysticism, the spiritual aspects. But I'm saying for the sake of history right now, was Adam and him speaking to a talking serpent, or God witnessing it, in all of these different, what they call supernatural events that happen, was that literal? Because I guess what I'm trying to express to you is, if you go to medieval Europe, medieval Spain, and you deal with the Jews, and when I say Jews, I'm talking about black. They were black men. They were black and brown men that were with the Moors. I don't know if I put Moors on it yet. With the Moors in medieval Spain. This is around 700 A.D. They documented that most of what we have inside of the Hebrew text, remember JPD, what's inside of the Hebrew text is mythology or even folklore, but it's trying to derive to what we call eponymous history. Eponymous means they don't know exactly the marker from the actual history. They didn't have archaeology back then. They didn't have carbon dating. They couldn't dig in the earth. So they had to figure out what was their genetic origins and create a map. And they did it through key eponymous ancestors, Eber being one of them, Ham, Shem, Japheth, Noah. But I'm making a point, and you'll see where I'm going. But that haplogroup A is Adam. They live in the Congo of Central Africa. That's your Garden of Eden. If the Congo in Central Africa is not the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden is a myth. It's fiction.
Is that because that's the earliest humanoid?
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? People like
the
closest thing to a person, maybe like 100,000, 200,000 years ago.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
They date to 120 to 100,000 BCE or 1,000 years ago. So that's important because in the Bible they say that Adam is 6,000 BCE. That's a problem.
That's not.
That's a huge blunder. And I'm not knocking my Israelites because we're one and the same. We're Phoenicians. We're all the same people. But you have to understand when they were trying to make canons for their history as a people, they didn't intentionally. We can't blame them or criticize them because they didn't do it intentionally. They're not trying to lie to people, and they weren't dogmatic with the Bible. It was their cultural narrative to give them political rights under a particular empire. The Persian Empire. So that's really where the invention of this whole Pentateuch or Old Testament comes from. We think it goes all the way back to them coming out of Egypt, the slaves. No, that would be 1200 BCE. To 700 BCE is when they had their first kings. Like they anointed and started having their first kings in their own nation. But, and I know it's a little bit all over the place, but this history, we're going to unpack it. But the reality is, them coming out of the slavery of Babylon forced them, because they were ripped of their identity, forced them to decide what narrative are they going to give the Persian kings to be able to stay and inhabit that land, the land of Canaan. So they gave the narrative of what they could recall of Syrian Brigantes or gangsters. When I say gangsters, meaning they were criminals, they weren't legally, the Syrians weren't legally laying stake to the land of Canaan. They were called...
They came and took it.
They were called Harible. I don't know if you heard of that before. Harible. And this word Harible, and it's Hebrew, right? It's the same thing as Hebrew. Well, this word Harible has a negative connotation. Today it's like saying thug or like a goon. Or criminal. It doesn't mean like, oh, it's just their ethnic name. It means a name to be feared. So if you read the Armada letters, this is why I try to say this is the rough history. This is where it's not so sensational, but we're going to get to the chosen people though. But the rough history though is that these Harible, we have documents of, they say the conquest of Joshua. You heard that before, right?
I have not.
Basically the Israelites coming and taking the land of Canaan, the promised land. You've heard of that before, right?
It was like a war.
There you go. They slaughtered a bunch of Canaanites. Well, to give you the best reference I can for that, I'm going to try to document as much as I can with these books I have, is the Armada letters. And Armada letters are particularly Egyptian kings writing back and forth with Hittite and there's other nations up there. Hold on. The Hittites and the Jebusites and all of these other Phoenician groups that were in the land of Canaan. And in Armada letters, they were saying that basically, and this is very important I share this, we have proof in those letters that the Canaanite peasantry, meaning the people who were the bottom caste, like black people pretty much in America, we were once slaves here, the bottom caste in that Canaanite nation, they lived a rebellion. They lifted a
Yeah.
rebellion against their Canaanite kings, their own people.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine a tyrant being your own race, your own people, and you lifting a rebellion against them.
Yeah.
The reason why, if you read the Armada letters, the reason why the Canaanites, the peasantry, not the kings, not the royal robes and the palaces and the thrones and the crowns, I'm talking about the people who were slaves to them. The reason why they rebelled is because they saw an opportunity of these Hittites and Syrians conquering, going south.
Mm-hmm.
And what these Syrians would do, they would go into a village and burn it to the ground and take the woman and take everything.
Wow. Hold on a second. Let me go close the door on the other side here. If you need a break or anything too, man, we don't have to go straight through it.
We
good.
We
Okay,
good.
got the momentum going.
Yeah, we can ride the waves. Yeah. We cracking it open. So
Let's go time.
yeah, there's no hesitation. I mean, it's gonna have everybody shaking, but hey, we shook because we got the references, we got the books. So
Yes. Okay, we're back.
okay, I'm gonna square myself back off, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna travel the same road.
I was gonna say, so you had talked about there was the war between with the Canaanites and the Canaanites, right? Pretty much the lower class.
The lower class of the Canaanites.
Yeah, they pretty much changed the what do you want to call it, the royal system, or they took down the royalty that was currently running things.
The caste or the government system that was existing. Okay, you have to understand, it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
This is where everything gets lost, I swear.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand all of the pieces. Because we can't just understand the Israelite aspect of it, because we're talking about the Exodus right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to show you the Exodus and them going into the Promised Land.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm saying literally, it never happened. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I once was at a point where I would say we were those people, we were the ones that, destroyed the Egyptians, we defeated the Egyptians.
Yeah,
Nah,
never happened.
you and the Egyptians are one and the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gotta be dealt with. This is from Tacitus, meaning when people are observing the Israelites during that time, the Israelites didn't tell them, no, we're not no Egyptians, flipping the Egyptians off. We hate them. We hate those Hamites, those Africans.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what the Israelites said.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelites said, no, the Egyptians is our people because my wife is Egyptian. My children are Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it goes so many generations to where it's like there's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difference between ethnicity and nationhood. A
Mm-hmm.
nation is where you have a name that you rep as a banner you go to war for.
Mm-hmm.
You pay taxes to that nation. You revere that king. You serve that king. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But ethnicity is, what is my actual ethnic blood tied to culturally? Like, who am I tied to? Who is my kin, my cousin, my son?
Mm-hmm.
So nationally, the Israelites were who they were. They were Judeans.
Mm-hmm.
They fight for only their kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. But ethnically, they were Egyptians.
Yeah.
They were Canaanites.
Now, is that because of these religious doctrines that were being put in place? So you might be of Egyptian blood, but the principles or the philosophies you're given are going to be of that, you know what I mean?
That's a good point that you went there. Yeah, you interjected a pretty important, significant point.
Yeah.
That's a whole build on itself about
Yeah.
the origins of the intent of why people carve and create their own
Identity. Yeah.
in their own identity. And we can get to the bottom line of why the Israelites did it today.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the time to go as far deep into the governmental systems of the Canaanites and Phoenicians before the Israelites even existed. Because at some point these people didn't even exist.
Yeah.
And I was going to deal with dates. Like you said, this is about 100,000 BCE.
Yeah.
They date Adam in the text, the original man, the first human, to be about 6,000 BCE. We have to understand that that Noah's son, Ham or Canaan, these people, we can date them back. I remember I told you Natufians. Natufians, we can date them back to about 8,000 to 10,000 BCE. So what we're saying is, how did the book of Genesis get it so wrong that they put Canaan to be a descendant of Ham at about 3,000 BCE, when these people date back to 10,000, 12,000 BCE.
Politics.
See, like you literally cut them, like you cut them out. Totally out of history. And that history is called the Phoenician or Canaanite history, and it's high classical.
Classical, yeah.
When the Israelites came in, we were going out. Our societies were falling. That's what they mean by the Canaanites are evil. Or because every society, every people have 4 stages of their society. They have the birth, they have the youth, the child like age, they have the adult or they fully matured, and then they have the old age. America's going through the same thing. So us Canaanites, we ruled the whole planet alongside the Cushites and Ethiopians. The Egyptians came a little bit later, but the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, and the Cushites and Ethiopians ruled the planet for a good 6,000-7,000 years, solid, strong. And we were the first colonializers of the planet. So when you think about someone creating a colony and making conquest against a strange group of people and laying tribute on them and forcing them to pay taxes, we were the first ones to do it. And we did it for about 6,000 to 7,000 years, and we civilized the whole planet.
It's still good.
Okay. So we civilized the whole planet. This is how the Phoenician language ended up getting to the Greek, then the Latin, then English. Let me know if I'm square.
Let's see here. I'm just making sure it's still good. I think we're still good.
Mix began.
Yeah.
The original racial blend. But the Syrians, which were Abraham's cousins or distant relatives in that area, that general area is called Asia Minor, they moved south and they laid siege against all of the Hamitic and Canaanite cities, and they took them. They literally just took them. And I was sharing earlier about the Armada letters that you think, let me know if I'm doing.
Oh, you still good.
Okay, you still good. In the Armada letters, it was the Egyptian pharaohs. See, why did the Canaanites that were in bondage or slaves, why did they rebel? Because the their kings, which were Canaanites, were in political tribute to the Egyptian pharaohs. You understand that dynamic?
Yeah. So wait, say it again. Let me.
Yeah, it's a talk. Okay. So the Canaanite peasants, I have to use that word freely.
The lower economic, the resource.
Yeah, the laborers. They were in forced servitude under Canaanite kings, and these kings wore crowns. But those Canaanite kings were in tribute to a bigger crown. So you have a kingdom, which was of Canaan. Then you have an empire, which is a king of kings. And the 3 particular pharaohs, I can go into their history, but it's not necessary. But we can all read that in the Armada letters. They were upset because these Canaanite peasants were aligning with the Syrians and slaughtering their own kings. They literally were taking out their own ethnic groups, their bloods, king, because they thought their kings, their lords were disloyal and traitors. And they were more ready to align with the Egyptians and put them in slavery than fight against the Egyptians and forget the taxes. We're not paying no taxes to no pharaoh and let us go free. Since the Canaanite kings didn't choose that, the Canaanites decided, the peasants, the locals, to live for revolution against them. That revolution is the Israelites. That's how that's the beginning of them becoming a new and a distinct people from Canaan. That's where the hatred and disdain for Canaanites, you hear about Canaanites being what? Nephilim. Fallen gods. Remember the 72 sons of El.
Yeah.
They being fallen gods. They're apostate angels. You know, they're wicked. They're all of this negative, derogatory stain all throughout Genesis and the whole entire Hebrew text against the Canaanites. It comes from that relationship they had with the Canaanite royalty, and they lived in giant walled palace cities. So we're saying the level of sophistication of these people is not being documented well at all in Western academia. Yeah. But we have the archaeology. We have we can find all of these cities we're talking about. And if you remember during the Exodus, when the Jews they claimed that they were going into the land of Canaan, they said that they saw a mighty people, a people that were renowned, that were giants. The people of old. These are people of old. So how did the Canaanites get associated with fallen angels in the book of Genesis? Do you get where I'm going here? The fallen angels in the book of Genesis were supposed to be descendants of Cain and Abel. Of these Elohim, remember the Elohim, saying they want to lay with the daughters of men, the daughters of these sons of Adam. And they fell, and he's become the descendants of Cain. Not Canaan, Cain. Yeah, I hope you catch it on. Meaning we got a problem. Why the Africans being called the fallen for?
Yeah.
Because the reality is they blamed the Canaanites and the Phoenician kings and royalty for bringing to the world heavenly knowledge. And that knowledge that these Canaanites and Phoenicians brought, and that's who we are. You said, are they from Africa? Where you place them in Africa? Well, it's Puntites. And today, Puntites translates to Bantu. We're the Bantu people. You can look up something called the Bantu expansion, and that's how this E got all the way into the heart of the Congo, the Central Africa, and then all throughout West Africa.
And that's the also the Ubuntu philosophy.
Yeah, that's Swahili, and that's the Zulu down in South Africa. That's us. That's a part of our lineage. That's different than haplogroup A, B, C, or D. Those are more archaic and primitive Africans. Now, I'm not saying that to be derogatory when I say primitive. I'm just saying we have to make a difference, because what's missing here is with Black Americans, it's key that I say this, is that Black people were given an image and presentation of Africa. That they were people who were uncivilized, had no language,
no system, sciences,
no sciences, no system, nothing. Had bones in their noses and ears, and they did scarification and drank blood, and they, were spear chuckers. All of this derogatory imagery. The issue is haplogroup E is not those Africans. We as West Africans, if they just showed you that movie, the reason why I love that movie, despite the gender dynamics, I mean, there's a lot going on, but the reason why I appreciated it though.
Woman King, so you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Woman King. The reason why I appreciated it because they depicted, in their Canaanites, they depicted the Dahomey people exactly what we were. That's an accurate depiction of what we were. Whether, however, high classical or low in our development we reached, we were a kingdom, and we were at that level. We had palaces, we had armies, we had language, we had all of that. So compare that image of the Dahomey or these new images of Africans with what they originally showed us. Savages. Who in the dirt can't even build a mud hut. So to distinguish ourselves as haplogroup E, what I'm saying is these people pretty much, the Israelites saw them as divine, damn near beyond humans, more than human. And the reason why is because the Cushites and the Canaanites and Phoenicians, they brought to the world language. They brought to the world religion. See, we love to claim the Egyptians brought this to the world. No, the Egyptians were just custodians of what the Cushites brought to the world. Meaning they just inherited it. And they showed the greatest of what the Cushites could produce. But we lose a part of the lineage of our history when we don't pay attention to the Phoenician, very key, and we throw negative narratives on the Canaanites. And that's why I'm going into this about the Israelites. Are we the Israelites, or are we the chosen people? Are we those people in that text? Yes, we're that. But you have to understand, who are they? They are Canaanites. They're Phoenicians. So we can't get into one school of thought in one field and then make derogatory
Mm-hmm.
other ethnic groups because of a particular religious disposition, because that's what they have. They have a religious disposition against Canaanite spirituality and religion. So we can get into that, but I'd rather get back to how these Canaanites became Israelites, because that's very key what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They rebelled, they lifted a revolt, and their identity became something that they had to cultivate as new. Because if they're going to be able to be their own and not be under the Canaanites anymore or Egyptians, they have to create something distinct. Meaning they literally can't claim nothing they were before. They can't do it.
Yeah.
So they claimed the lineage of the Syrians who migrated south. They just said, okay, they're called ancestral heroes. I don't know if you heard of that before. Ancestral hero cults. So you hear about Hercules. People say that he really exists, that Hercules really exists, or did he not exist?
Yeah.
Well, literally, no, he didn't. But was he an eponymous ancestor or ancestral hero that helped these people of Macedon cultivate, or the Cretes or whatever Greeks cultivate that area? Yes. See? So Hercules being an example, Abraham, he's a ancestral hero that the Canaanites championed. So they said, seal him in. We'll claim that we descend from that. That's fine. We'll say we come from Syria. But the reality is these Syrians were foreigners. There was no massive migration of Syrians or Semites that went into Canaan and became a people called Israel. Those people were already there. That's the point.
Yeah.
And whatever smaller group of men that went in there, they blended and got completely consumed by the Hamitic blood that was there. It's impossible for there to be more, let's say, Asian blood in that region or amongst the Israelites than there is Hamitic. It's impossible. Because, like I said, all of the women that they took on were Hamitic. All of the people that their children would have to marry, guess what they would be? Hamitic or Canaanite.
Yeah. And that formed a new thing, though.
And they invented, the 12 tribes, each one distinctively, you can find real history for, real records for. But it dates way before Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. So Judah, you can find him in ancient India.
Yeah.
3,500 BCE. Judah in India. So there's your Jews. With the people called the Yadavas, the Yadava clan, and those melanated group of people in India. But other tribes, let's say like Reuben, they come from the north. They may come from Canaan. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, they come from different groups. So what happened is they took different ancestral theophoric names. These are deities. When I said these are Phoenician deities, they took these heroic names and they made a compilation to represent them all as one Canaanite federation, one people. Gotcha. And my references, let me make sure I got, I don't know if this is be long-winded for you, but I got to make sure I plug in the references.
No, it's good.
The references for everything I just shared, like I said, you can get the Bible Unearthed by Israel Finkelstein. You want to get a book called We the Black Jews by Yosef Ben Yochanan. This is top scholarship here. And everything I said here about the Israelites, because you got to understand, this scholar, Yosef Ben Yochanan, he is a descendant from the people, the Beta Israel or Beta Israel, the Falasha in Ethiopia, in East Africa. He is a direct descendant of them. And he had to bring to America the truth that they, Beta Israel, are the true original Hebrews. And that those black Jews, those black Hebrews, are from a cultural narrative of being Israelites that has been botched, that has been misconstrued, misconceived. The reality is, through his book, We the Black Jews, people have to read it, the Israelites were identified as Egyptians and Ethiopians. And he even goes to some footnotes, he mentions it, that they're Phoenicians or Canaanites. So, We the Black Jews, you want to get Godfrey Higgins, champion. I mean, these are the texts. These are the number one texts. Godfrey Higgins, Eclipse, deep book. It'll show you without a doubt that all of these people were, let's say, Phoenician and Egyptian, in their culture, language, their blood. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever aspect of Israelite you want to deal with. Yeah. Except for the small bit of Syrian blood. I remember I said haplogroup E. Wouldn't the Asians have to be a different haplogroup? If we're E, if the Hamites are E, then what would they be? They are haplogroup. Let's do like that. I gotta separate them. They're haplogroup. Very important. I put this. They are haplogroup J. Let me know if I'm sticking to the bullseye.
No, you're still on it.
Okay, they're haplogroup J. So what I'll have in edit is myself will have Nat. We'll find a haplogroup map and we'll be able to show you point on the maps of the migration patterns and who's who.
Mm-hmm.
But haplogroup J, H, I, etc. are your groups that are what they call the out of Africa migration. These are groups who expanded into Asia, to Arabia, to Yemen, to Southeast Asia, like India. Remember, we said the Hindus. We'll deal with that aspect in a minute. But we, like the Hindus, they expanded through these 3 paths of genes. E, you see how early on in the alphabet E is? That's how more ancient these people are.
Yeah.
These are very new people.
Yeah.
Very new. So the Europeans, you might say, well, where did the Eurasians, what is their haplogroup? Their haplogroup R and O. So you see how later on down the list of the alphabet that is?
Yeah.
They're R and O. So with showing us the haplogroup J, I got to make a distinction that Abraham and all of his people mixed in with the Canaanite locals. So I'm saying we can go to Palestine, Israel right now. Go to Jordan or Israel right now, and go take a swab test of them and see what their haplogroups are. I'm telling you, like 1/5, that E is going to show up without a doubt. And we don't have to guess. I'm not saying theoretically or hypothetically. No, I'm saying go online. You can go on Wikipedia and look up DNA test of Israel, the people of Israel in Jerusalem right now, the holy city of Jerusalem. You're going to see this haplogroup E show up in their gene pool. So I thought that they were Asians only. No, they are not that. They grandfather was, and they got a grandfather in their closet that is an African. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Europeans in America. Yeah. It's a lot of Italians that got a lot of more in them, you know. But it's a lot of Israelites that are in Israel right now, like Palestinians and Israelites and Sumerians who have this E. But I have to say this because I gotta be fair. I mean, I gotta say this to document it. This haplogroup J, yes, you can find it. Am I good on time?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. This haplogroup J, if you look at a map, a global map of the haplogroups, it is in North Africa amongst the Berber and the Amazigh and these different Mauritanian or Moorish people in North Africa. You heard of the Moors, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is there. That J is there. So that shows you that thing, that blood all the way from Sumer made its way into Africa as an Israelite ethnicity. You go to the Beta Israel, the Falasha in Ethiopia and Eritrea, they have the J. Most Amhara, they call the Amhara people, that's their actual name. Like, you know, you've heard of Haile Selassie?
Yes.
And the whole the Rastafarians is who pretty much are devoted to that. But who are those, like they say they claim descendancy from Solomon and Queen of Sheba. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Well, check their children's blood today. You'll find that J there. But you'll find way much more than that J, you'll find the E. Guarantee you. If you go to the Limba in South Africa, they claim to be Jews, black Jews, or they descend from Israel, or they're Jews. You'll find that J amongst them. So if you go to West Africa, wherever you see that J, most likely they're Jews. So earlier I documented it for us. Books showing the migrations of the Israelites going through Africa. Hebrewisms of West Africa. This will show you and document for you what I mean by this Syrian, that's what it is, Syrian, or Sumerian, if you want to call it, or Semitic blood going into Africa. So the Israelites are there. That Semitic blood is there.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, despite this, outside of distinction from this, that haplogroup E, we are one and the same people.
Yeah.
We can't ever get confounded or confused about that. That's what I'm saying. 10 years from now, I know it's gonna be like 1,000 Hebrews like, dang, that, you know what I'm saying? It took a minute, but hey, I see what he's saying. Yeah, it's gonna take a minute. But
Wow. So you can tell the story through the bloodlines, and you can tell the story through deciphering through the biblical narrative and historical. I guess using science to decipher historical information.
That's a fact. Yeah, we have to use science as it can be our own tool in our community. It doesn't have to be a whole other institution. If we were to go get our degrees and get initiated in whatever field of science, we could champion. And we do have geneticists. So we do. We have like 5 major geneticists. And we have genetic companies. But yeah, science is primary, no doubt.
Yeah.
So the Hebrews had a narrative. They may have been incorrect here and there. But what I will say is they did a good job documenting a general clarity, general idea of what that history was. So you see how I can criticize the details? But the problem is when you compare the Hebrews text, their text, and how they documented this history compared to pretty much anybody else on the planet, the Greeks didn't even do but so well.
Yeah.
They have Herodotus, Strabo, they have their historians. The Egyptians are the only people who documented world history probably as good as these Hebrews.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, where did the Hebrews get their documents to begin with, to document that history? Where did they get their where did they, if there was a Garden of Eden, where did they get that whole idea from? How do they know about that?
Yeah.
It just Moses just like, oh, I see it all, you know, on the top of the mountain. Nah.
No.
Where the Hebrews got their information, that's what I said, documenting hypothesis, we got to research it. The Hebrews got their update, and they wrote, Moses didn't write most of it. It's a priest called Ezra and Nehemiah. They're the ones who wrote what we have called the Pentateuch predominantly.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Those are those part of the 4 priests that you mentioned earlier?
4 types of priesthood.
4 types of priesthood? So how do we get up to, so this is a lot. We probably have to break this up in different
I try to tell
different course, make this a whole course. But how do we get to today where a person or people identify as being Jew, Jewish, or Hebrew?
Okay, so I got to preference that question with deeper questions because Jew is so generic. Obviously, you can see.
Well, that's also my question. So, with being a person who identifies as Jew, that can be a cultural thing and a thing of bloodline.
Yeah. Okay. Remember, ethnocentric theology. It's very dangerous. The way I can translate that is, let me show you, because you'll be like, oh, I get it now. I get what you're saying, brother. Religious racism. So, to those who may be curious if black people are the chosen people, or if we are descendants from the Hebrews or the Israelites, sure, I show plenty of documents. I published the books, was showed in the video. Or just do your research. Yes, it's abundant. It's well understood. But we got to be careful with identifying with this low on the spiritual spectrum of our reality. Because what that gets into is nationalism, and that's what we can criticize these Jews as practicing. So, and that means that the Israelites had a particular patronage to a deity, and I'll get into the details of the deity if you want, where they felt like they were blessed by that particular deity, and they were supreme over every other race on the planet, and every other nation or ethno group is subordinate, or they're slaves.
Hold on. Wait, who had a particular deity?
Okay.
I missed that part, man.
Okay, so the J, that would be the Yahwist.
Okay.
This is king. Okay, remember I told you Ezra and Nehemiah. They are the priestly and Deuteronomists. But the J, if I'm mistaken, we can always correct it, but that would be King Josiah.
Okay.
His ancestors is King Hezekiah, King Ahaziah, Azariah, and that their father is who you know, I'm sure you know, Solomon.
Solomon, most popular.
Solomon's great grandson, Josiah, is who you can attribute to removing all of the Canaanite deities, including God's wife, because yes, God has a wife. But thanks to King Josiah,
Yeah.
God divorced her. He ain't got no wife no more.
Oh man, that's cold.
But to be clear, where people got everybody shit like, what? God got a wife? What are you talking about?
Ask God to show me on my enemy. Oh, it's the studio.
Okay, we good. Okay,
Yeah.
So God's wife, you can find her as the embodiment of wisdom in Solomon's text of Proverbs. That's pretty much why I went there. Because Solomon, during his period, and David, his father, and these early kings of Judah and Benjamin, they were henotheistic. Henotheistic meaning there's a supreme deity, and there's many other deities that are subordinate but are very important. But King Josiah, his great-great-grandson, said, nah, we're not going to even have the names of those other deities in our books, in our households, in our temples, being only one temple now. And that temple would be the temple at Jerusalem that they call Zion, the temple at Zion. But before then, there could have been 30 temples. They didn't care.
Yeah.
There could have been a million temples. They didn't care. So they boiled it down to control King Josiah to one cult, the Yahweh's cult, and that deity became the one who Josiah, then later Nehemiah and Ezra claimed patronage to say that they were blessed through Abraham. I don't have them on the board, but through Abraham to receive of the land of Canaan and all of the supremacy racially over everybody on the planet.
Wow.
But you have to understand that particular deity coming in through King Josiah was called Yahweh. Yahweh. See, I said the 72 sons of El. I didn't say Yahweh.
Yeah.
Because Yahweh was introduced much later. Yahweh is considered a Midianite and Edomite. I know the Israelites are gonna be like, what? Like, yeah, well, okay. For my references, the Shazu Bedouins that were in Egypt, they were the first ones on the planet that we find using the term Yahweh or worshiping Yahweh. You see, and they date before any Israel or Abraham or any of that in Egypt. So the Midianites worship Yahweh. So what I'm saying is the Canaanites, they were like, we hear about you, Yahweh, you all right, you know what I'm saying? But we're going to stick to El. And at some point, El lost subordination. He lost subordination to Baal. Baal, very important. Baal. And the gods, the Elohim, then the chief deities got the title of Baalim. I don't know if you're familiar with these deities.
No.
Yeah, these are the male side, the males. The females are called the Ashtadim. The Ashtadim. And they're feminine cult deities, feminine principles that the Canaanites, there you go, Phoenicians, began to worship as supreme. They subordinated El, they put him in the closet, said we don't want to worship him no more. And there's reasons for that. There's reasons why. I'm not going to get too deep right now because we're not dealing with religion really or spirituality. Today we're dealing with nationality, race.
I do have to wrap up here.
Sure.
But man, let me just say thank you. Like, this is profound, it's amazing. We're gonna have to have maybe a couple different courses, maybe a couple different sessions, if you don't mind, just to kind of unpack it some more. I feel like there's quite a bit here to keep expanding on, to expound on for this topic.
I would say I appreciate you, brother, and complete blessings on your whole entire platform. And your soul being moved, this is what gets unraveled. It's these different pieces of the cloth, and we able to unravel the mystery. I say if you give me 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, please.
And I'll close out,
please,
because it's semi all over the place, but we do have placements that are foundational that can't be moved. But I'll take that 5 minutes, and then we'll have the end of the video. And yeah, like you said, if we gotta come and cut this puzzle back up and find the other pieces. Yeah. And I was gonna say the last thing, or this 5 minutes after this, but Yahweh becomes a composite of El, Baal, and many other Canaanite deities. And that's where they get the ethnocentric theology that they're the chosen people above all other people on the planet. The Egyptians did the same thing. It's called Setepin Re, meaning they felt they were the chosen of the god Re. Re and Baal is one and the same. It meaning that deity is not the supreme God.
Oh wow! See, they thought they were clever calling Superman L.
Yeah, there you go. Kyle, yeah, Kyle.
Well, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. You sound like pro. That's what pro be. Yeah. But the Phoenicians and the Cushites, I can accuse of doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to say the Israelites are the only ones that are walking around saying they're better than everybody. And they all of these people, the Israelites just follow the traditions of their ancestors, the people that were greater than them. Mm-hmm. And what we have is ethnocentric theology. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, if we so happen to be Israelites a part of that narrative, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Because we're Egyptians. Yeah. We're that too. Mm-hmm. We're Cushites. Yeah. I'll put all the references on the page. Mm-hmm. So that should bring close to that, but I want to bring it close to the whole video. Okay. But the books that I had left to reference for us to kind of seal it up, you can time it for me. I said 5 minutes, but I don't want to.
Oh yeah, you got like 3 more.
Okay. Yeah, you can get Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. He's going to give you the history that the Jews are what we said. The Israelites are these different races. Ethiopians, Egyptians, and Canaanites. Other books,
J.A. Rogers.
J.A. Rogers. You want to get Race Knows No Color Line and Sex and Race. 2 different books by J.A. Rogers. Excellent. He's excellent scholar. He's a black man. Most of my references are going to be black men. To understand the Phoenician history and how that relates to the Israelites, very key is Philo of Byblos. Philo of Byblos, he was a Phoenician priest who documented the Israelites and their deities and language coming from the Phoenicians, okay, the Canaanites. Philo of Byblos. Philo of Byblos. To understand the Phoenician cosmology and mythology of his deities and how it relates to the Israelites and where they got these deities like Baal and Yahweh and El and all of this from, you got to read the Ugarit Baal cycle. It's called the Baal cycle. The Baal cycle is a text about Baal becoming the chief deity and subordinating El. That's, maybe I'll show the picture, but the Ugarit Baal cycle. Top PhD scholarship. We just said Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers. To understand that all of these are the same people, they just took on different titles at different time periods. You got to study the sister I mentioned her earlier, Dr. Dana Reynolds. Excellent. And I think I'm gonna just look at this last thing, brother. My bad.
You good?
Anything I think we have to add, I can always edit it later. The prophecies about the Israelites being in Africa, we have that in the Bible. I'll put that on the screen. And that's pretty much it. So with that, the summary of everything that we need to learn from the point of nationality all the way to the point of our own soul, and these are all levels that if you follow me throughout these teachings I'll be having throughout my life, that I'll be dropping throughout my life, you'll see that I'll be trying to help us ascend and transform from lower levels of identifying ourselves with the body, with being a human, or with your ancestry, or even your nationality, and reaching the knowledge of yourself that you identify with your soul. Because that is higher than all of these subordinate deities. That deity is called Ahaya Ashah Ahaya. And that means
Ahaya Ashah Ahaya?
Ahaya Ashah Ahaya. Maybe we come back and we build on that maybe, but the subordinate deities are deities who are patronages over nations, where these nations go to war and racism and compete over land and resources. But the supreme deity is your own soul. And that deity pervades through all beings. There is no chosen people in that sense. All is under the embodiment of the expression of that supreme God. All is God. And that is your own soul. So we'll break it down in the future. Oh, is it still up?
Yeah, it's still going.
Okay.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Man, beautiful, man.
I can clean it up for you if you.
Oh no, leave it there. Okay. We don't mind. We gonna leave that on the board so curious minds walk in can see what Song Lab is about.
And I want to say too, I'm excited to probably dive into the music too, because I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, man! I'm gonna put out that music